lot of discussion in the industry right now, and over the course of the past probably 2-3 months especially, on this concept of signal loss. What does it mean?
It's a fundamental change really to the technology and advertising ecosystem. So when you think about how consumers control their own data, some of the big platforms are giving consumers the ability to actually have more say on what their data is used for on the web. And so if you look at the recent changes, Apple, primarily for the last 10 to 15 years, it was an opt-out model. So your data would flow into whatever device, application, or user interface that you were using. And then that data was basically transferred to various partners, and then people could rent it from an advertising perspective to find the audience and consumers that they cared about. The change that's happening in the ecosystem now is users are getting more control of how their data is used. So that's primarily what signal loss is it gives the user of any of these platform or applications or interfaces more control.
So is everyone going to opt out, or is the thinking that some percentage will still say, you know what, I'm fine with this? Like, do you have any sense for where that's going to land?
Yeah, the initial data is, at least in North America right now, is the majority of people are opting out. But over time, I think that'll change because, giving data, whether it might be your phone number, whether it might be your address, whether it might be how you're using a platform, there's a value exchange between these platforms. And so as users get more used to this and this evolves over time, I think you'll see varying degrees of how that data is used. And I think users will, exchange their data in looking for some of that value creation. And so like when I think about it, I think about something like a DoorDash, right? Like in the pandemic, like I would absolutely give my address to them because they're gonna bring my family dinner. And that's how the value exchange, so I'm gonna opt in to that experience.
Right. Ultimately, I think it's fair to say that people really don't know what the extent of the impact is going to be. But at least over the course of the last few weeks, I think the feeling is that we're going to be able to get most of the way as marketers through sort of modeled data and basically looking at signals coming from that sort of 10, 20, 30% who are opting in, and then extrapolating that from there. Is that sort of how you're seeing it as well, or?
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, I would kind of think about it in two buckets. There's targeting and there's attribution. So from a targeting perspective, I think in the short term, it'll become a little bit more difficult for smaller to mid-sized marketers who don't have vast engineering resources to find the audiences that they care about in terms of targeting and then track that back to attribution. Now, over time, like this technology is built, and I think there'll be a time where there's some sort of happy medium that kind of provides this over time. That leads back to attribution. In the short term, I think there'll be a little bit more of a modeling of attribution versus actually knowing down to a smaller cohort of users, say like to the user or to a group of 10 that might be modeled out into a group of 1,000 or 10,000. But we'll have to see kind of how that transpires from an attribution perspective over the coming years. I do think the larger marketers who have more engineering resources will be able to connect the dots from server to server integration, which will replace some of that signal loss.
So short term, performance marketers probably will be impacted most, and I guess the sort of expected result is perhaps slight to potentially more significant just increases in cost of acquisition. I'm Alex.
And I'm Matty.
And we covered, I would say, a decent amount of what signal loss is, but there's a lot more here. The good news is VidMob has created an incredible resource in our digital marketers essential guide to signal loss. And if you want to dig in and learn kind of all that there is to learn, just click below, download the ebook, and hopefully that'll be another valuable resource for you.
And thank you for your time today.